Hey everyone, welcome to Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi on YouTube. My name is Gurpreet, Sian, and joining me today is my colleague and play-by-play announcer on Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi, Mantar Singh Bhandal. Mantar, how you doing today, brother?
I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. What do you think of the season so far? It's flying by, man. And
You know,
we had a pretty cool broadcast this past Saturday as well, right?
yeah, it's been compelling and it's crazy now, entering my fifth year on the show, and you probably feel the same way. I think you're at eight or something like that. It's gone by so fast. And
Yeah.
it's been, thinking back, like this is probably the most volatile 5-year stretch in like NHL history. If you think about it, right? Like 2017, the Vegas Golden Knights enter the league. The next season was probably the only normal season we've had on the show, like when I've been here, because the year after the pandemic happened. And then so they had the bubble and everything. Then the year after that, division realignment, right? Only Canadian teams in one division. And then this year, there's another team coming into play, right? So it's been a crazy 5-year stretch, but it's been exciting. The season's been great. A lot of leads that have just been thrown away. 2-goal leads. We saw a 3-goal lead, in the third period just get blown the other day, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. I think a lot of these guys are just excited that there's a little bit of normal kind of feeling with this season, right? Like you're not in a bubble, or there's no asterisk with your records. Like last year, McDavid hit 100 points and it was amazing, but
It's back to normal again.
he played 30 games against the Senators, the Canucks, and the Flames, right? Like there's kind of like an asterisk next to that, whereas everyone else had a normal schedule, right? Whereas
For
this
sure.
year, there's no excuses, right? You're not seeing the same team 10 times. You're only
Yeah.
seeing them 4 times, right? So it's exciting, and just naturally, I think a lot of people are just kind of back into it because the last 2 years, we had the Stanley Cup playoffs starting so late or so early, right? And the timing was totally off. So now that season's starting in October, we're gonna have the Cup final in June. It's kind of back to kind of how it was before, right?
Absolutely, man. I agree. It feels nice. It feels nice to be back to that normal schedule, 82 games, same start time, same end time. And you mentioned Connor. There's been a number of storylines already this season, and specifically with the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid. He's on this ridiculous pace, man, on pace to score over 200 points, 213 points if you do the math. Will you be surprised if he can get to 150 points, let's say? He's not going to get 213. Nobody's going to keep that pace up. But 150 is realistic. What do you think? Like, do you think that's possible? Will you be shocked if he gets 150 points this year?
Well, 213 would be the second most point, like the second
I
biggest point
know.
total of all time, right? I mean, I would love to see it. Hey, like you were, very much an Oilers fan during the Gretzky era. You got to see
I
that
was.
212 season, the 215-point season. So it'd be kind of cool for me to see a 213-point season, but that's obviously very ambitious.
It's not going to happen.
150, I think, is more likely. I could see it happen, but here's the thing. I think the first half of the season, he'll be on pace for something crazy like 150, maybe up to 170, right? Something ridiculous. But everyone always cools off in the second half. There was a few years ago where McDavid and Draisaitl both were on ridiculous point totals. I forget which year it was. I believe it was 2 years ago, before I think the season where the pandemic cut it short.
Yeah.
So this would have been 2 seasons ago. I think both McDavid and Draisaitl were on pace for 140 points. And they've by the time the season ended, they were only going to hit like 120, which is still a lot, obviously.
Only.
But yeah, only. But I would be surprised to see him hit 150. But seeing his evolution and just how he gets better and better every year is crazy. Like the guy is already like a mutant on the ice. The amount of weapons he has in his arsenal is crazy. And we were doing the game last week, or the week before rather. He's starting to add a one-timer now to his arsenal, right?
Yeah.
He was never a guy that really scored off one-timers. He was always a guy, kind of a one-and-done, kind of rush to the net, a guy that would stand in front of the net, right? Score on rebounds, on deflections. But the one-timer was never really something he would do. Mm-hmm. And then, against Calgary, he scores a power play goal and a one-timer, and he didn't even wind it up that much. And then the stick was maybe at hip height, and he wired it.
And he was the guy who fed the passes, right? But not... He wasn't the one who took those one-timers, and now he's added that to his arsenal, which is scary, right? And like I'm one of those people who, like you, I think, thought last year was a bit of an anomaly, right? Because the North was so weak. There's no way he could keep up that pace in a normal regular season. 1.88 points per game. First 5 games of the season so far, he's averaging like over 2.5 points a game. We know he's not going to keep that up, but if you forget about the COVID seasons, especially last year, he's been closer to like 1.5 to 1.6 points per game. So I think he'll definitely fall back down to something closer to that average. And I think he's going to hit 130 points for sure. I feel like he's going to surpass what Kucherov did a few years ago, 128. I think he'll hit 130, but I don't know about 150, man. 150 is pushing it. I think that's a little too high of a number.
I would agree. I would agree. But one thing he does have going for him is the NHL, is trying to crack down on stuff like cross-checking, slashing, hooking, that kind of stuff. So we've seen a lot of hooking calls, a lot of cross-checking calls that, not going to lie, are kind of soft, but that benefits.
Are you trying to say it's an easier league to play in these days?
Yeah, but I mean, I would agree. I mean, you think back a couple of years ago when Eric Stahl literally just, blew up Goodrow's hand on a little slash, and then the next year they were cracking down on slashing, right? Yeah. We saw how scoring bumped up. Mm-hmm. So I could see McDavid get a ton of points in the first half of the season, and then you know how the referees are, right? Every year they're like, oh yeah, we're going to crack down on this. And then by the end of the year, they're just back to how they were the year before. And the playoffs, they don't even call penalties, right?
Exactly.
But 130 is definitely, I'm not going to say a given, because McDavid does have an injury history, right? Yep. He hasn't been the healthiest guy. Not that it's his fault. They've both been freak accidents, really, both injuries. But 130 is, it's crazy to say 130 is a given, but it's pretty much a given when it comes to McDavid. Because you look at this year with the run support. I mean, they got 6 guys that are a point a game so far. I mean, it was only 5 games into the season, but Zach Kassian is a point a game. The new guy they brought in, Zach Hyman. He's been doing great. He's really helped bolster that lineup, the top 6. Jesse Puljujarvi, he keeps stepping it up. And it's great to see, because a lot of people wrote him off. When he went back to Finland during the Peter Chiarelli era. And if I were him, I probably would have done the same thing too, right? Your team is in absolute turmoil. But you know what he did? He came back. He's been putting in the work. I mean, it helps obviously playing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Of
course.
But to give him credit, he's one of those rare guys that he's so big, but he can skate. He's a very fluid skater. He doesn't fall around much. His north-south speed is actually really good. Laterally, obviously, he won't move the best, but that's to be expected for a guy of his size. But to have McDavid, to have a guy like Puljujarvi now on his wing that is being held accountable, that is chipping in offensively, it's just going to make McDavid a better player, because there's nothing worse than you're doing everything and your teammates just suck. Like the last few years, he's had some bad wingers on his.
You talked about some of his teammates, so let's enough about McDavid. Okay, we're going to talk about this guy all season long, anyways. So let's talk about some of those other guys and the team overall. So the Zachs are doing well, and Puljujarvi, who we like to call Jassa, right? Jassa Singh is doing well too for the Oilers, but the team overall, they're undefeated and they're looking pretty good in the Pacific Division. Can you legit call them a threat in the Pacific Division? Are they a legit threat? I know it's only 5 games in and we're totally overreacting in every which way. That's what we do. But what do you think? Are these guys a legit threat in the Pacific Division this year?
Believe it or not, I actually do think they are. And the sole reason is because the Pacific Division is garbage. It's the worst division in the NHL. Yeah. You put the Oilers in the Atlantic Division, and I don't even think they're a playoff team, honestly, like literally. But in the Pacific Division, 100%, because the Vegas Golden Knights have taken a step back. They're not playing as well this year. The Vancouver Canucks, they're not going to be, juggernauts for the top of the division. Neither are the Calgary Flames. You got the Arizona Coyotes that literally have 4 fourth lines on their team. The Oilers, it's really their division to lose, if I'm being honest. They have everything going for them. I could see them winning division. Maybe not comfortably, but they could. And it's just because it's the Pacific Division, honestly.
Yeah, it's a pretty weak division. I agree with you, man. And anytime you got Connor and Dre on your team, you're a legit threat and you have a chance. They've also had a pretty easy schedule so far, so I do want to throw that out there. Yes, all the teams are pretty weak, but like you said, they played Vancouver, Calgary, Anaheim, Arizona. Vegas is not very good this year. Philly, Vancouver coming up. So the teams they've played aren't great. Koskinen's looked good, but from the way that I see it, they need Mike Smith back. Koskinen's been good for those 3 games, but they need Mike Smith back healthy. He's got to play. He should be back soon. And, Connor and Dre are still doing a lot of the heavy lifting, man. Like the other guys are chipping in, but those two have scored 24 points. That's 40% of the team scoring. So they are still carrying a heavy load, just the two of those guys. And if I think back even a couple of years ago, I think it was 2019, they also had a really hot start, 5-0. They won 7 of 8, and then, they kind of fizzled off and no playoff success, right? So that's kind of where we're going to have to measure these guys is, do they make the playoffs? How well do they do in the playoffs eventually? So yes, I agree with you. They are absolutely a legit threat in the Pacific, but it's still, they haven't really proven it against anybody that good. And let's just see how it goes for the next 10, 15 games. Another one of the teams here in Canada is the Canucks. That's, kind of going in the other direction. They haven't looked completely right. And I don't know what it is, but once this team finds their gear, where would you rank them in this division? Yes, it's a weak division. If Edmonton's on top, where are the Canucks going to slot in that division?
I would say the only way they make the playoffs is if they finish third, right? Top 3 in the Pacific, because I don't think they're going to get a wild card spot. But this is a trend that, I've kind of noticed with teams is they get guys on entry-level contracts, they experience a lot of success, they pay the guys, and then they can't get back to where they were before.
Yeah.
Case in point, a team like the Winnipeg Jets, right? I think then when they paid everyone and they had to completely jettison all the guys on the blue line, the Winnipeg Jets did, and now they just haven't gotten back to that level. That's kind of where I see the Vancouver Canucks right now, and that's not a great position to be in. So, I mean, I'm not saying don't pay the guys. They're obviously the best players on your team. They deserve their cash. But the reality is, and this is a great quote, is, it's hard to go for a run in the morning when you wake up wearing silk sheets, right? Like Pettersson and Hughes have got their money now, right?
That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, so Hughes has got the length as well. He signed to a long contract where Pettersson's on a bridge deal. So Pettersson's got more to prove. But he just hasn't been the same guy since his rookie season. The rookie season, he was incredible. He was dynamite. The way that he invigorated the team is not like something I've seen in a very long time. That amount of impact on his team as a rookie. And, I think he kind of screwed himself with that rookie season because I think he set the expectations way too high, right? I think people were like, this guy is going to be the next, the next great thing. And I think Pettersson is a great player, but that rookie season, I don't think did him any favors. I think this is a guy who's easily a point-a-game player, but he's not that game breaker level quality that he was in his rookie season. Now that the league's kind of figured him out a bit, and Pettersson's also been banged up a little, so it's when I look at the Canucks top guys, I think the most important player is Bo Horvat. You can think about all you want about the Lotto line, Besser, Miller, Pettersson. They actually have really good forward depth this year. Their second line is pretty solid, if you don't look at the left side and Tanner Pearson. But Horvat and Garland have been great this year. But as a division, I think, if they claim that third spot, they're in. Wild card wise, it would be tough. And they have a similar issue to Edmonton where, a lot of those guys on the back end don't inspire a lot of confidence in me. I think the Oilers are a great team for the regular season. I think they're built for that, but they've had no playoff success. The Vancouver Canucks have had playoff success, but they also had good defensemen and they had good goaltending depth back then as well. Whereas now, they did improve some pieces on the back end, but I think overall they aren't getting enough from the guys on the back end and goaltending wise.
Yeah, and they're still heavily reliant on Quinn Hughes. Like when Quinn Hughes is in the game, the team looks totally different. They play totally differently. And yeah, Bo Horvat's a huge part of it. But as we saw in the game we just did this past Saturday, Thatcher Demko, I think, is the most important piece of this team against the Seattle Kraken for that home opener for Seattle's team. If it wasn't for Thatcher Demko, that game would have been a blowout the other way. So Demko, if he keeps playing like this, he's going to be the X factor for this Canucks team. And I think they could be a top 4 team. I don't think they'll be top 3 because I actually think Vegas is going to start playing better. It's still early in the season. And if Vancouver does drop to that 4th spot, I do agree with you. It's going to be very difficult to make the playoffs and, actually have any success there. So Elias Pettersson, I don't know what's going on with him. Like he's only got 3 points. Connor Garland is outplaying him. He's got 8 points already, and he's been a great addition to the Canucks team so far this season. He's got 3 goals, 5 assists, almost tripling what Elias Pettersson has done. And, teams are starting to crowd Elias Pettersson. They know kind of how to stop this guy and not give him any space to shoot and move the puck around and maneuver. And that's what they've been doing for the last couple of years. And like you said, his rookie year set this ridiculous bar, which he has not been able to meet yet since then. Hopefully for Canucks fans, that changes this year. But as of right now, it's not looking very good. So that's a bit of our preview for this upcoming weekend. We're going to be covering that Oilers-Canucks game on Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi, and we'd love to have you guys join in on Omni Television. In the meantime, please do like, subscribe, and share this video on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, Mantar. Have an awesome day, brother, and I'll see you in a few days.
Sounds good, buddy. Talk soon.